tell from the introduction of this week's show, we didn't actually end up making a shot-for-shot remake of Vampyr. Mainly because when we met with that producer, we realized how much money it was going to cost, and the fact that none of us have any real filmmaking experience, nor could we hire anybody that actually had real filmmaking experience, not counting, of course, the owners of camcordertv.com. I didn't want their help, I wanted to do it on my own, but I realized that now is not really the best time. But I think part of the reason why I wanted to do a shot-for-shot remake of Vampyr so much was because simply I fell in love with this movie. The movie was directed by Danish filmmaker Carl Dreyer, or if you want to get real technical, Carl Theodore Dreyer, or as they say in Germany, Carl Theodore Dreyer. But anyway, he also wrote the script along with Christian Juhl, and together they made a cinematic masterpiece. The movie is loosely based on the story Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, who is a French Huguenot who wrote a story about a vampire, a female vampire, who attacked a girl and subsequently started turning her into a vampire, more or less. This was a big contribution to literature, because never before had there really been a vampire lady. And of course, that was part of a much larger volume called In the Glass Darkly, which written by Le Fanu. But Dreyer decided to make a movie that was loosely based on that portion of the novel. Of course, if you watch the movie and you read the book, there really isn't a whole lot of similarities, but the movie is still a work of art. The basic premise of the movie is about a young man by the name of Alan Gray who is obsessed with the supernatural. So much so that he decides to go to the little village of Vampyr, I believe. Again, I don't know why, but for some reason, me and the Romance languages, I'm more of a Germanic kind of fellow, in case you couldn't already tell. He goes to the little village of Vampyr, and he stays at this little inn, and randomly this old guy shows up in his hotel room. He says to him, "She must not die," and he leaves him a parchment that's to be opened after his death. Well, Alan goes searching around and he stumbles upon this very, very strange house where a bunch of whatever have living shadows that kind of follow each other. And then, of course, he meets the vampire, but at the time doesn't know she's the vampire, Marguerite Chopin, and the doctor, who is her minion, who lives in the house with her with these people with dancing shadows. And of course, Alan actually meets up with the old man again, who lives at this great big house. He finds out that his daughter is sick, because Margaret has been chomping at the bits at her neck. And nobody gets that joke. His daughters, Leonia and Giselle, live at the house with him. And eventually, the old man, he dies. And then Alan starts reading from an ancient book that the old man had required to learn about his daughter's condition. And he learns, of course, about Marguerite and all the craziness that's happening at that house. And he has to decide what to do next. Do I kill Marguerite Chopin? What do I do from here? This film is excellent because of, well, the cinematography was so ahead of its time. You really didn't see a movie with camera angles like that for probably 30, 40 years even, really. Dreyer used natural lighting when he made this movie. Much of the movie, when you see the fog, that's a real fog. It wasn't artificial. And most of the quote-unquote actors in this movie weren't really actors at all. They were just people, for whatever reason, Dreyer felt like looked the part of the movie. There was only 2 professional actors in this whole movie. The girl who played Lenora, her real name was Sibylle Schmitz, And then I believe the doctor, the gentleman who played the doctor, was actually a professional actor. But other than that, they were all amateurs. Particularly the leading man, Alan Gray. In the movie he is called Julian Vest, but in real life he was actually a baron. Kind of like me, but I am a count, so he comes from a different country than me. But anyway. Oh, he was also the sole financier of the picture, believe it or not, which is kind of some of the reason why he got the lead role. But to his credit, he actually did a pretty good job. I thought he did. It's a real gothic thriller. And it was made, of course, a year after Dracula in 1931. And the sad thing about it is this movie didn't do too well at the box office at all. As a matter of fact, it bombed. And some film scholars, myself included, believe that this is perhaps Dreyer's best film. Of course, I haven't actually seen any other Carl Dreyer films, but hey, I'm a little bit partial to vampires myself. Just saying. Well, that's all the time that I have for this week. Be sure to join me next week for my review of the original Nightmare on Elm Street. But as far as things go when things go bump in the night, there are such things.